Before the digital age, capturing a moment was a physical act, a dance of light, chemicals, and mechanics, permanently burned onto a strip of celluloid. A film camera wasn't just a device, it was a witness. But what happens when the witness sees more than what is present? It records a reality that shouldn't exist. The story begins with Leo, a film student who bought the camera from an obscure online auction. He was drawn to its retro aesthetic, intending to use it for an art project. He filmed his apartment, his cat, the view from his window, mundane scenes of everyday life. The process was slow, the film expensive. He sent the first reel to be developed, filled with the quiet anticipation familiar to all analog creators. He expected grainy, nostalgic images. What he got back was something else entirely. Projecting the developed film onto his wall, Leo watched the familiar scenes unfold. His living room, bathed in morning light. But in the footage, standing in the corner of the room, was a figure, a tall, slender silhouette, completely motionless. Leo froze the frame. He knew, with absolute certainty, that he had been alone when he filmed it. This is the first stage of this specific horror, the impossible photograph, an irrefutable physical record of something that defies your own memory and the laws of space. Your own evidence becomes a weapon against your sanity. How could this be? Let's disregard the paranormal for a moment. A fringe physics theory known as multiverse overlap or quantum decoherence imaging speculates that under specific, unknown conditions, a recording device could capture photons from an adjacent reality. The camera isn't seeing a ghost. It's seeing a different now. The figure in the room isn't a spirit. It's a person standing in their own living room, in a universe that is layered just microns away from ours. The camera isn't haunted. It is a window, driven by a terrifying need to understand. Leo conducts a controlled experiment. He sets up the camera on a tripod in a completely empty white room. He turns it on, leaves, and locks the door. He stands outside, listening, all facing the camera, as if they were aware of its presence, as if they were waiting. The figures never move. They are utterly static. This passivity is what makes them so psychologically disturbing. They don't threaten. They simply exist. This triggers a deep, primal fear of being observed by something incomprehensible. In psychology, this is related to the uncanny valley, but for reality itself. The world seen through the camera is almost identical to ours, but the presence of these silent, still watchers makes it profoundly wrong. They are a glitch in the fabric of existence, and the camera is the only thing that can see them. Dot. Leo tracks down the camera's previous owner, an elderly man who is reluctant to speak. Finally, he confesses. He was a paranormal investigator in the 70s. He bought the camera, believing it could film ghosts, but he found something worse. He explains that the figures aren't spirits of the dead. They are echoes of people who are still alive, people who at some point were filmed by that very camera. He warns Leo with a trembling voice. The camera doesn't just see them, it makes a copy. A static, silent copy that exists in that other place. And eventually, the copy wants to be the original. This introduces a new, terrifying hypothesis: quantum entanglement imprinting. The theory suggests the camera's unique lens mechanism doesn't just record light, it entangles the quantum state of the subject with a counterpart in a parallel space. It creates a doppelgänger. For a while, the two are separate, but entanglement has a strange property. What happens to one can affect the other. The old man's warning implies a horrifying endgame, a merger, where the static, silent copy attempts to displace the original, living person. Leo's terror escalates. He remembers a foolish, vain moment from his first roll of film. He had turned the camera on himself for a few seconds. With shaking hands, he puts that first reel back into the projector. He finds the clip. There he is, smiling awkwardly at the lens. And standing directly behind him in the footage, where there was only a blank wall in reality, is one of them. A tall, slender silhouette. He realizes with a surge of ice-cold dread. He didn't just film a monster, he created one. His own. He begins to experience strange symptoms, moments of profound stillness, where he finds himself standing motionless for minutes without realizing it. He feels a strange sense of detachment, as if he's watching his own life from a distance. His reflection in the mirror sometimes seems to lag a fraction of a second behind his movements. The merger has begun. The copy, the silent watcher from the other place, is beginning to bleed into his reality, pulling him towards its state of static, silent existence. In a panic, Leo decides to destroy the camera. He takes a hammer to it, smashing the lens, crushing the body. But it does nothing. The connection has already been made. The imprint is permanent. The horror is not in the object itself, but in the irreversible act it performs. Destroying the camera is like destroying a gun after the bullet has been fired. The damage is already done. He is now haunted, not by a camera, but by a version of himself that exists on a strip of film and in a place he cannot see. Just this broadcast was assembled from Leo's notes and the film reels he sent to us before he disappeared. The final reel he sent was unlabeled. When we developed it, it contained only one shot. The camera is on a tripod, looking at a chair in his apartment. After a moment, Leo walks into the frame and sits in the chair. He stares at the camera. He does not move. He does not blink. He just sits, perfectly still, for the entire 10-minute duration of the reel. The merger was complete. The copy had become the original. Old technology holds a certain charm. It feels more real, more tangible. But this tangibility comes with a risk. These devices were built in an era of less understanding, using principles we've since refined. They're wild cards. They may contain flaws or properties that we can no longer comprehend. So the next time you find a beautiful vintage camera at a flea market, ask yourself, what exactly does this camera see? And are you prepared to live in the world it shows you? Because once it sees you, it may never look away.